In honor of Denver's decriminalization of magic mushrooms, doctors of Reddit, what, if any, is your best story of patients on hallucinogenics? I'm not a doctor, but I was working as a paramedic at a music festival when we got called to a kid tripping on who knows what. The guy had climbed to the top of a portable generator stadium light. So he's 20 feet in the air, on a light pole staring into this blazing midnight sun screaming, "I'm a moth, go into the flame." We had several cops, firefighters and myself standing at the base for 30 minutes discussing how to get him down without killing him or us. The entire time a crowd of people on drugs is surrounding us to see how it all plays out. Do we get a ladder truck and try to coax him down? What if he won't go? Do we spray mace up there? What if he falls? All of a sudden this greasy-looking janitor walks up, turns off power to the generator, turns on his flashlight and aims it at the Mothman. Dude looks at the flashlight on the ground, scambles down and follows it to the medical rent like a puppy about to get a snack. I'm embarrassed that none of us thought about that. That guy partied hard back in the day. This wasn't his first Mothman rodeo. I had a guy who was freaking out thinking he was going to die because he thought he had eaten too many hallucinogenic mushrooms. He went online and saw that sometimes patients are given activated charcoal to soak up the mushrooms in the stomach, not entirely true by the way. So he goes outside and starts chowing down on charcoal briquettes that he has in his garage for grilling. After about a dozen he realizes, holy shit, I'm eating charcoal briquettes. Now he is really freaking out, so he grabs his dog, as the thinks he is never coming back to his house, and drives himself to the ed. He parks out front, walks into triage with the pup, black charcoal all over his face and hands, and says, "I need a doctor and someone to watch my dog when I die." That's actually really considerate of the dog, if he was worried that nobody else would show up to take care of it in time following his demise. That guy had his priorities set. One of the benefits of hallucinogens, you tend to cling to what's important while you're being fired through the galactic pinhole. Deleted carrot 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 0.5672. This is all nonsense. 89,098. It was nice of him to offer to share. I'm an anesthetist. During a C-section the epidural seemed to not fully be working and the patient was feeling pain, so we were forced to give ketamine. Ketamine has many effects and one of which is profound pain blocking, analgesia. It's safe to use in this case because it won't stop the baby from breathing like morphine or fentanyl would. Ketamine also causes hallucinations, like severe hallucinations. Patient stopped screaming from pain and began screaming from the dragons. Ooh ooh oh shit. Oh shit. Ah, get them away, while being totally pain-free and comfortable. It was not in a terrified way but more of an excited, I can't believe it kind of way. When the baby came out and began crying it turned to, what in the fuck is that? Oh my god. That lasted a solid 20 minutes. Edit, thanks for the gold. First gold coin ever. Got high, had a kid, saw dragons. All in the same day. Lucky patient. I had a patient who had taken an ungodly amount of Benadryl in a failed suicide attempt. A lot of people think that since it makes you drowsy, a bunch of it might be able to kill them in their sleep. Instead of killing them though, Benadryl basically gives you absolutely terrifying hallucinations for like 24 hours or more and then leaves you with the worst multi-day hangover you have ever had in your life. He would not stop yelling and screaming about that damn cat poking its head out of the ceiling tiles every single time I left the room. He also had short bursts of thinking he was covered in bugs and I would find him stripped naked and yelling into the wall. Fucking ceiling cat, he sees you every time. He was very upset that we had put him in the cat room. Had a friend become impatient with mushrooms once. He took an eighth, and an hour later decided they weren't very strong, so the most logical thing to do would be eat his other eighth. Cut to 2 hours later, and he is parked on top of a parking garage. Tried to drive across town when they kicked in and he immediately realized his fuck up. He tried to wait it out, but after being abandoned by everyone else, I wasn't around, no way in hell would I have left the poor guy on 7 grams of shrooms to his own devices, and he decides he needs help. So he calls 911. While on the phone he wants to be as honest as possible, so he tells them about his .22 caliber rifle behind the seat of his truck. Only it comes out as, there's a gun in the car. He says he was tripping and sweating so badly. It was July. The next thing he remembers is hearing a tink 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 and looking up to being surrounded by police, guns drawn and ready for anything. Friend isn't a danger though, so they get him in an ambulance, and give him charcoal to induce vomiting. The rest of the night is a blur for him, and he wakes up cuffed to the bed. They ask him if there's anyone he can call for a ride, and he tells them his mom is a nurse who works on the second floor. Apparently while tripping he kept telling them to go upstairs and get mom, so they all have a chuckle realizing his mom really was upstairs. Dude, I couldn't tell you where my left hand was on 7 grams of shrooms, much less my mother. If I ate 7 grams of shrooms I wouldn't even be able to grasp the concept of hands. I once ate 7 grams of mushrooms. It was all fun until I got struck by lightning and was electrocuted. Turns out that my phone was on vibrate. They call them fingers, but I've never seen them fing. Oh, wait, there they go. Wow. Had a woman come into the ED after ingesting some PCP. She was convinced she was dead and kept telling me she didn't get her last rites. At one point she stripped off all her clothes. And shat the bed. Also mistook me for Jesus at one point. She was freaking out for nearly 24 hours. I was a doctor that was on rotation in the emergency department. 33-year-old male who was brought in naked by the police, under the influence of suspected mushroom ingestion. He had a bit of trouble understanding why he'd been arrested, despite being very aware of the fact that he'd been caught gallivanting around naked in the rain in a children's playground. The initial police response had been with 2 officers, and he told me with glee that they weren't able to grab him because he was slippery like an oiled pig in the rain, and the nakedness didn't help with no clothing for them to grab. Due to being unable to catch him, they called for dog squad backup. He recounted with a shit-eating grin how he'd hidden inside a giant puddle like Rambo and had thrown sticks and rocks to confuse the police dog. Following an hour or so, they gave up and reverted to using a search line of approximately 12 police slowly advancing to find him. Eventually one stumbled into this goblin's little swamp puddle, and then they took another 15 minutes trying to catch him as he bolted naked around the children's playground, again. His only regret, despite his wife refusing to come and pick him up from the hospital, was that he hadn't eaten more shrooms. Edit: I'm glad this story is brightening a few days. Thank you for the silvers and golds. To his fans, I'm sure he's somewhere out there to this very day, naked, slippery, and plotting his revenge. Edit 2, it's a big no, I know, but I couldn't resist. I remembered that I took a screenshot of his presenting complaint. When he came into the ED, I needed something to show my future children. Don't worry, all identifiable information has safely been removed. Slippery, naked silliness. Also, fixed the Doctor Who, a lot of concerned BBC fans out there. Am a doctor. Not a great story, but I had a kid come into ED after taking some mushrooms at a bush doof and then feeling weird. We told him it was probably the drugs that he took. It hadn't occurred to him they might be linked. In my town though, the great majority of drug-related presentations are from meth, and they aren't pretty. We get meth-induced heart attacks, meth-induced seizures, meth-induced motor vehicle accidents, meth-induced sexual violence, and my personal favorite, meth-induced dickheadery, where a patient is being a dickhead in the community, and the police can't take them to the watch house so they come to hospital instead. I've been spat on, punched, kicked and called every name under the sun by meth-influenced patients. I've seen tiny psychotic women requiring 4 security guards and 4 police officers to restrain so that we can sedate them for their own safety. Meth is not good, kids. Edit: a bush doof is like a rave in the bush. Sorry for the confusion. Nurse here. Used to work the night shift in a very small, rural ED in North Carolina. We had a couple in their 20s get picked up the local police. They were found in their car stopped on the train tracks looking very lost and confused. They had somehow made it from Raleigh and were attempting to get to the beach. We don't know exactly when they decided to take the LSD. So they're brought into the ED for an eval before they're let go. This being rural NC, no one had a clue about how to handle this type of situation. We basically gave them IV fluids, put them on cardiac monitors, and tried not to stimulate them too much. They were extremely polite, and since I was the closest in age to them and had some experience with recreational drugs, I did my best to engage them. As I was starting an IV on the male partner, I asked how he was feeling. Very safe, he replied. His pupils were as wide as saucers. I miss that job sometimes. I'm a paramedic, but this story is from back when I was an EMT, hand holder, oxygen giver, bandage distributor. Got called at night for a teenage male who had ingested mushrooms. On the way to the call, my paramedic partner was unusually silent. After a while she pipes up, "I don't get it. He ate mushrooms. Like, what, portobellos?" She grew up very sheltered in the country. So that's how this was gonna go. We get there and the cops walk out a skinny kid wearing only boxers. Took some shrooms, first time ever, freaked out and told his parents, who called 911. My partner is spinning in circles and asking whether she should call poison control. I help the kid into the ambulance and onto the stretcher, turn the lights down low and tell my partner just to drive to the hospital. The kid is calming down a bit, but he's tripping pretty hard. Asking if his parents are Jesus and stuff like that. This was before smartphones, when iPods were the shit. I had one of those radio transmitters you could plug into the iPod and then play music through the vehicle speakers. It had a remote that I carried on my belt along with the clicker for the ambulance. We were going to the hospital, lights down low, just being chill, when I remembered what my partner and I had been listening to a couple hours before when we checked our equipment. Thievery Corporation. So I reached down and hit the remote without him noticing. A few seconds go by and he turns to me with the widest eyes I've ever seen. "Whoa. What is this? Music?" He was in true bliss. He kept asking me about the music for the rest of the ride. We dropped him off and I wrote "Listen to Thievery Corporation" on a sheet of paper and tucked it into the waistband of his boxers. I like to think there's some dude out there from upstate New York who fell in love with thievery in high school but doesn't really know why. Edit, yeah. Thanks guys for my first gold, silver after being on here for years. It's also my birthday and you guys just made a ho-hum day great. This happened 13 years ago and I've had many great experiences in my career, but this is still one of my favorite stories. I'm happy you all enjoyed it. For those of you new to thievery, glad you found them. Also check out Cosmic Game, Radio Retaliation and Culture of Fear. They span so many genres but always bring a great vibe. And their message is pretty on point. One of the few bands I almost never skip. When I was a medical student, I saw a guy high as balls on PCP. I was working with a tiny little Asian chick who was a PGY3 resident, and when we walked in the room, this giant naked white dude high as hell sees her and screams that she was the devil or something. Guy lunges at her, and the cop in the room promptly slams him onto the bed. I try to help like any med student working in the field they wanna match in, and I swing around behind the guy, who's actively winning the MMA match with the cop, and grab him into a choke hold. Excellent bedside manner, was a comment I got on my slip that day. I pin him for a femtosecond before he realizes he's crispy as shit on that good ol' phencyclidine, and he springs his upper body forward, swinging me over the back of the bed seat right onto his lap. It took me like 5 secs to realize what happened. I nope right out of there right before the police tased him into oblivion. Hours later he was asking us rather politely for some orange juice with all 4 limbs restrained. Did he get his orange juice? Yep, sure did. First person to comment. This thread will turn into, not a doctor but. I guarantee it. Fun fact, in the UK magic mushrooms are classed as a class A drug for some reason, which is the same category as heroin and crack cocaine. Cannabis is still a Schedule 1 in America federally, basically same thing. What's weird is meth is a Schedule 2 drug. Lots of children and some adults take amphetamines every day. Being that there is a medical use, it's still a Schedule 2. Cocaine is also a Schedule 2, and it's frequently used in surgeries. Heroin would basically be a Schedule 2, since fentanyl is 50x stronger anyways. Amphetamine and methylamphetamine, although chemically similar, are still very different compounds. Methylamphetamine is prescribed in the US for rare cases of weight loss or narcolepsy. Edit, in very rare cases of ADHD, dioxin can be used. As a nurse, patient came in running in the ER asking for a blood transfusion cause he believed that vampire bit his neck. Patient has no any visible marks or scars. Held him down for a while and asked him to calm down. He was so frightened that he asked for garlic to keep the vampires away. Eventually he calmed down and walked out on his own with no problem. Hope that you're reading this. I wanna take what you're taking. Hope that you're reading this. I wanna take what you're taking. Doubtful, since most fun hallucinogenic drugs don't make you straight up hallucinate like this person seemed to be. Unless of course you take a rather large amount. I unknowingly took 5 to 6 grams of mushroom tea. My dumbass didn't weigh it out and found out next morning just how much I took as opposed to the 3 grams I eyeballed, and at some point in the night convinced myself that I was in a real-life Splinter Cell game. I was 110% convinced that if one of the other dorm mates saw me going to the bathroom that they'd bust me and I'd have to start over from my room to go back to the bathroom. Even then, part of me deep down still knew that it was all in my head, but I was enjoying it too much. Last place I wanna go to when I'm tripping is a hospital. Obligatory edit. Wow, I've always been a lurker, never had so many people agree with me, lol. Also, shrooms are amazingly amazing. Have a good day people, smiley face. Physician here. I see complications of drug abuse daily. That said, visits from hallucinogens are very rare. Not counting some bad reactions to PCP and ketamine, which are more dissociative agents than hallucinogens, I have probably only seen a handful of cases in my entire career. I wish I could say the same for alcohol, which contributes to multiple injuries every shift I work. Most of the time it is pretty boring. Usually the patient was either naive to the drug or took a bit too much and has some anxiety. A few cases of teenagers being caught tripping by their parents and dragged to the hospital, which seems like a terrible experience. Now, what I am seeing is an increase in senior citizens having bad reactions to marijuana edibles. Basically, someone in their retirement community gets a medical marijuana card, and they all decide to try edibles for the first time, only to find out this isn't the weed they were smoking in the 60s. Not really a hallucinogen, but one time I was using propofol to sedate a patient for a procedure. He thought he was Lionel from Thundercats, and was doing the Thundercats thing the whole time. It was hysterical. Outside of work, one of my friends ate a bag of shrooms at a party, and got stuck in a loop talking about the Camel from the cigarette brand. He was convinced the Camel was coming to the party. Another friend tried to go surfing one night while on shrooms. Issue was he forgot to put clothes on. Yep, guy was walking down the road at 2 a.m., butt naked, with nothing but a surfboard. So while I cannot give my endorsement for drugs, hallucinogens, assuming untainted product, in reasonable doses, in a safe setting, tend to be fairly safe compared to other drugs of abuse that I see regularly. Now I am sure people have done dumb, dangerous shit while on them, but it seems low compared to other substances, some of which are legal. Edit. I apologize everyone. I get it, his name is Lion O. I guess I am a little out of date on my Thundercats trivia. I am a medic. Was working a concert in Chicago at Northerly Island a few years back for Fish Fest. Get a call for a male with his face in the ground. Find a shirtless 20-something-year-old with his pant undone and digging his face into the sand. I get next to the guy and tap his shoulder, say, "Sir, do you know what's going on? Are you okay?" To which he responds in the most classic stoner voice, "Do you know what's going on, man?" and digs his face back in the sand with the stoniest of smiles you can imagine. We coax him out of the sand pit and he tells us he took 10. Just 10. Couldn't remember what of, just 10, and honestly 10 is bad number of anything, lol. 10 tabs of acid, 10 grams of weed, 10 grams of mushrooms, 10 shots, 10 heroines please. So we let him sit in the drunk tank with the rest of the tripped our goons. God bless their trippy little hearts. Do you know what's going on, man? Shit. I never really thought about it that way. In a busy urban ed, one unkempt-looking man with altered mental status sits calmly and tiredly in a bed along the wall in the hallway. As I walk by, he grabs me, with a worried look on his face, and says in the most classic stoner voice, "Hey, man. Why does the time on that clock keep changing?" Me, "That's what it's supposed to do." Patient, ooh yeah. Laughs. Still one of my most memorable encounters. Thanks for watching our video. If you like it, please smash the subscribe and like button to support the channel, so that we can create more quality content in the future.